Let me recognize Mr. Perry for 5 minutes.
I thank the Chairman. Thank the witnesses. We have ample evidence that China has undue influence over many UN organizations, including the WHO. The WHO continues to exclude Taiwan, that is an important player in this and many other things. Do all of you think that we can just unilaterally trust the World Health Organization to give an impartial assessment of China's response to the coronavirus?
I'll start. I certainly don't think so, Congressman Perry. I think the WHO is performing better now than it was during the Ebola response 5 years ago. I think new leadership has helped. But I think the delay in declaring a public health emergency and international concern reflected Chinese influence there. And I think that, the WHO is just one aspect of this response. They aren't going to treat people. They aren't doing research. They're important. The U.S. should support the WHO, but we need to be involved directly on our own in China and with our allies.
Okay, so that's fair. They've been complimentary of China's response, but critical of other nations. Do you take pause when you hear that? Or, Mr. Klain, just for example, you're, I guess, a self-described expert, having your involvement with Ebola. Have you been critical of China's response?
Yes, I have, sir. I've published in everything I've written about this so far that the Chinese have failed the test of transparency and cooperation, and that they definitely need to do better. We should be very concerned about that, and we should be, as I just said a moment ago, engaging the Chinese government at the highest levels to press them to do better. This should be at the top of our agenda
Mr. Klain,
in our relations with China, sir.
Do you know if President Trump has or has not talked to the President of China about this?
I do not, sir.
You don't know, right?
I do not.
So, I mean, you would admit it's a little unfair to criticize him here when you just said you don't know if he maybe has, maybe he hasn't. I don't know, but you're making the claim here that he should have done it or should be doing it.
My claim is that he should have done it or should be doing it. I will say he hasn't said that he's done it, and the officials reiterate that the Chinese aren't cooperating yet.
Mr. Klain, you worked on the Ebola virus outbreak in Sierra Leone, Guyana, and Liberia. Is West Africa? Is that about right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Are any of those nations communist nations?
Not to the best of my knowledge,
right?
sir.
Are any of those nations seeking worldwide dominance over the United States of America, stealing somewhere between $300 and $600 billion in intellectual property annually, including medical technology?
No, sir. As I said, I'm not here to defend China or its response to this virus. In fact, I've been critical about China and its response to this virus in virtually every answer I've given to the subcommittee today.
So, in your view, what is the first responsibility of the United States government regarding a pandemic, the coronavirus, Ebola? What is the first responsibility of the United States government?
The first responsibility of this government is to keep the American people safe.
To keep the American people safe, that's right.
Yes, sir, and the best way to do that, as we did with Ebola, as we do with other things, is being engaged globally in helping nations fight these diseases overseas so they don't come here,
are
sir.
you advocating for a travel ban outright to China or from China? I'm trying to get that from your initial testimony. I couldn't tell where you were. You were critical of the current situation, but you didn't offer your solution set as an expert, so to speak.
Sir, I did offer my solution set. It was that we monitor carefully everyone who has come to this country from China recently.
How many people travel from China to the United States every single day, sir?
Well, before this outbreak, it was about 8,000 a day.
8,000 a day?
Yes, sir.
And it's your studied opinion that we should let that happen unencumbered, unimpeded under all circumstances and monitor those 8,000 people a day's whereabouts should this continue to progress and we found an outbreak in the United States of America?
Congressman, it's my studied opinion that we will never reduce that to zero due to trade and due to the travel of Americans and Americans' family members. In fact, the President's order exempts 11 different categories of people from going back and forth to China, as well as hundreds of people a day bringing goods here. And so given that hundreds of people, thousands of people will come here every day, I say it, sir, it's not your position that American citizens in China should be stranded there and unable to come back. And given that, then the only practical thing we can do is to monitor those who are coming here to this country, who are bringing medicines to this country, who are bringing goods and services
May I
to this country.
close with
that
the
seems
time
like
that
the
I
only
have?
practical solution,
Mr.
sir.
Klain, we appreciate your experience. We do, and your expertise, because you've done this to a certain extent. But I don't think that you've operated in the same realm with the Chinese Communist government and their actions towards the United States. So things are a little different. And the other thing is that while you had a certain experience, it might not be the only way of doing things. And so while it's great to throw partisan shots, I mean, when you talked about bringing, I read your piece in the Atlantic, sir. I mean, you talk about bringing countries in the United States together and not being paranoid. All you did was offer criticism and really no help, and that's not helpful at all, and I yield back.
Well, Congressman, that piece included praise for Secretary Azar for the other aspects of the response, praise for the administration's response to a limited extent in Congo to Ebola we've seen there. I opened by saying this isn't a partisan issue, and I reiterate that this is not a partisan issue. What I do believe, though, is that if we don't engage globally, and again, I've been very critical of the Chinese, we can't keep America safe, sir.
And I would agree with you, but instead of blaming America, you ought to look more towards the Chinese, not you.
Great. And again, the goal here is we want to be supportive of the administration. Congress wants to be